A lot to talk about. Let's bring in our panel now. We want to bring in former legal advisor to Donald Trump, May Mailman, also the director of the Independent Women's Law Center, and Mark Reichel, criminal and civil defense attorney. Thank you both for being here. May, I want to start with you. You have worked directly with Donald Trump in the past. What is standing out to you this week? And also, what do you make of his demeanor?
Yeah, so in the criminal trial, I think actually the thing that President Trump seems the most irritated about is the gag order. And, this is something that is a very unique restraint on President Trump, something that the ACLU has weighed in against in another case. And President Trump is facing contempt charges for reposting other people's things, for calling Michael Cohen sleazy. And, Michael Cohen is sleazy. But as far as the trial itself, I do think actually it's going fairly well for Trump. And I think that he agrees with that. The prosecution has done a lot to make it seem salacious, but they really haven't gotten anything about the case, like any elements that you'd actually need to prove for your case. And then I think he did very well in the Supreme Court.
I appreciate that. Mark, let's go over to you. What is your take? Are his attorneys making a strong enough case?
It's really too early to tell. I'll tell you this much. I think round one definitely goes to the people of the prosecution here, because I think Pecker is really important and he did exactly what they needed. But round two is coming up. Michael Cohen, okay, is going to have serious problems. To this day, really recently, in January of this year, Michael Cohen told a federal judge trying to get off of probation that he really never did anything wrong and that he's coerced into pleading guilty and so forth. That's going to be really tough for the prosecution here to now tell the jury, please believe this individual. I can also tell you, I think Hope Hicks, who I think the prosecution was really relying on, remember, under oath in Congress, she said, I didn't know anything about the hush money payments until November, until long after they happened. I think the way that prosecution will get around that is say, but you found out afterwards that there was a conspiracy to hide them, which is, I think, what they're going to go after here and try to hammer home that it's not necessarily the crime, but it's the attempt to cover it up that will get you.
May, you mentioned a gag order before. We know Trump also facing another gag order hearing on Thursday in this case, and prosecutors laying out the social media posts that they believe violated this gag order. I want to piggyback off of what you were saying before. What do you make of this? What will the outcome of Thursday's hearing likely be?
I think it's likely that Trump does end up having a fine for his various statements, because the fine amounts are relatively small for Trump, $1,000. And so I think it feels consequence-free to go ahead and punish him. But I think the problem really is that you can't forget that Trump is running a presidential campaign here, and that the trials are fully wrapped up in whether he's qualified to be president. And it's something that people think about. And so for him to not be able to say things about the trial, to call the trial unfair, or to call people who call him names, call them names, he really wants to highlight how unfair that is. But when he says how unfair that is, then he gets in trouble for violating the gag order. So he's in a catch-22, but if he gets fined, he's going to keep doing it.
Mark, what's your perspective on this here? And do you think it will ever get to the point where the court needs to step in?
Well, this is a tough gag order. I mean, it says you can't talk about witnesses coming up. You can't, a lot of things that you can't do. So and he's clearly violating it. I think he's kind of thumbing his nose at them. At some point, I do just, 33 years now doing this, I don't understand why the threat of incarceration, just temporary incarceration, which is a contempt sanction, isn't on the table. I know the DA's officer, they're not asking for it, but he's violating it. They're going to make him pay fines. They're going to make him remediate it by taking the post down. But quite often, I think this could result in, hey, you're going to go to jail during this trial because we can't stop you from doing this.
Mark, I do want to stay with you. Let's talk about the Supreme Court hearing arguments from prosecutors and Trump's lawyers over his claims of presidential immunity. Which way do you see the court leaning here?
Well, I actually argued in the U.S. Supreme Court against Mr. Dreeben. He was the Solicitor General back in 2006, and I just listened to him doing it now. I think they're going to actually come out against former President Trump, but it's going to be close, and they're going to tailor it down. I think they're going to say it's going to have to go back to the trial court for a hearing on whether a certain immunity applies, and they're not going to give broad, complete, immunity, but they're going to give some immunity. Okay, they're not going to give complete broad immunity like Mr. Trump, like former President Trump wanted. But they are going to say you can't always just charge a former president and they're going to limit the times that you can, and then it's going to go back to the trial courts to determine, hey, is this one of those times?
May, what do you think? And if the justices do determine a limited immunity applies to the Oval Office, where does this put Trump's legal cases?
Yeah, so I actually agree with the likely outcome. I just think that that is a ruling for Trump because the D.C. Circuit essentially said that there is no immunity for official acts done while you're president. And I think you at least have 5 votes saying, and in fact, even the solicitor, or not, I guess, the Solicitor General representative, but Jack Smith's attorney agreed that there should be immunity in some cases too. So it does seem like the D.C. Circuit is wrong and that Trump is going to get some immunity. Now, whether that immunity applies to this action or that, this speech, this email, this conversation, that is going to take a while to sort out. And because it's going to take a while to sort out, you're going to have a delay post the election, which, of course, is also a win for Trump.
And May, I want to stay with you here. I mean, you've worked directly with Trump in the past in the capacity as a legal advisor. He is coming out classic Trump, all of this bluster, all of this confidence. Give us a sense, what do you think is actually happening behind the scenes?
You know, Trump is listening to his lawyers and then taking some advice and disregarding other advice. I'm sure.
Is he hard to advise, May?
I think everyone would agree, yes, but he has the best political instincts of anyone who I've ever encountered. So he's doing what's smart for him politically. Now, that's not always what's smart for him legally, but as long as it's something that's permissible for him legally, then, you know, I think his lawyers should take a deep breath and just deal with it. Now, the gag order is tough because, as mentioned, jail is always possible. But politically, sending Trump to jail for retweeting somebody would I think, catapult him into the White House instantly. So again, you know, Trump is going to bluster. He's going to say what he's going to say. But I think ultimately he's making a political case, one that he has to make.
May Mailman, Mark Reichel, appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.